Well, the news cycle never sleeps, and neither does the mainstream news media's outrageous conjectures, gaffes, and missteps. It's hard to keep up with it all, but that's why we have RT producers Tabetha Wallace and Tyrel Ventura who do just that. They joined me earlier, and I started by asking Tyrel, what happened this week?
Well, it's interesting, coming off of the big election buzz and all of that, CNN and MSNBC took a hell of a hit in the ratings, so much so that, yes, the Weather Channel beat them for their morning ratings.
That's incredible. I don't think people even knew the Weather Channel had this much following until this moment.
I believe it was like Wake Up with Al. Al Roker does the Weather Channel mornings, and he sent out a tweet that actually said, "Thank you at Weather Channel viewers. The week of 10/6, we outperformed CNN, and during the week of 10/20, we outpaced MSNBC, CNBC, and CNN."
That is just incredible.
Al Roker kicking butt in the morning. Well, it just shows how little people are watching, the opinions of Joe Scarborough and these shows in the morning that really are these very, just canned, boring, there's nothing interesting they have to say, and all they do is just spit out the same regurgitated stuff that you see day in and day out. There's nothing new, there's nothing fresh. And it's interesting, too, because this also plays on the heels of CNN, and it's no surprise they're losing viewers like they are, because they're also making some really just blatant mistakes. One of them being that just recently, when the recent Navy SEAL came forward and said that he shot Osama bin Laden, CNN made the sad mistake of putting on their lower third that the Navy SEAL killed Obama.
Oh, no.
Now when you're flipping channels and you see something like that, that's a big one. There's little gaffes that happen all the time. We know mistakes are made, but that's pretty huge.
It's pretty huge, especially when you see people more do it when they're speaking, a Freudian slip, if you will, not necessarily written.
Yeah. And, I was talking with Tabetha earlier, and you actually have a great kind of insight into why exactly CNN, MSNBC are losing all these viewers.
Well, a lot of it has to do with they're just not listening to anybody in the youth market at all, and youth being anyone from 18 to 35 and up, even into their 40s. They're expecting us all to just sort of grow up and start watching them eventually, and they're not, because
following their parents. But the reality is now we're so fragmented with so many other kinds of media. That it's hard to really, continue to garner that audience. Well, climate change probably has done a lot too for getting more viewers on the Weather Channel.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, and Tabetha, the other thing I know you're following this week is a small local news mishap. Tell us about that.
Well, the mayor of Minneapolis, who has been quite outspoken about trying to root out corruption and that sort of thing within the Minneapolis Police Department, well, she seemed to have gotten on the wrong side of police unions and police, because they planted this story in the local media.
This is a photo of Minneapolis Mayor Betsy Hodges arm in arm with a man flashing what law enforcement agencies tell us is a known gang sign for a North Side gang.
It's a known gang sign.
Unknown gang sign.
No.
Flashing gang signs.
By the way,
the pointer.
So
I've never seen that. The pointer as the latest and greatest gang sign.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, apparently, and the worst part is, so they sort of paint this guy as this is this criminal and gang member, and you had police officers saying is she supporting gangs
because
now?
he was a convicted felon. I think that was a story too.
Which is that. And what was funny about that is this gentleman was out there canvassing for votes to encourage other people to vote, even though he himself doesn't even have the right to. He's out there in the community trying to encourage others, and this is what they did. Actually,
it's really messed up. The reporter, too, even when it came out, who this guy was and what the mayor was doing, they weren't, being outrageous. They're getting people to vote. They're doing, The reporter who did the story continued to push it even on Twitter, even after people started showing him the inaccuracies of his reporting, and that it clearly was just a smear campaign. Jay Coles, he took to Twitter at one point saying, well, that's your juvenile opinion. Symbol of stick-up boys. If he is leaving gang life, why the sign in that photo, you're naive?
Wow.
Right.
I'm sorry. I've seen a million photos in culture with people making all sorts of hand gestures.
I think he was hoping he had an exclusive story there, and it clearly was not. And it makes me wonder if she had been posing instead with a Caucasian male, if this would have even been a story.
Which is why it's being called one of the most racist local news stories of 2014.
It's
not a great way to get
If there ever was a list, that would probably make number one.
Definitely.
All right.
Such a list.
Unfortunately, that's all we have time for. But RT's Tyrel Ventura and, of course, the wonderful Tabetha Wallace, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.